Before America was a nation, it was a collection of colonies, each with its own way of life. From wealthy merchants to struggling farmers, life in the 13 colonies was far from equal, and those differences would change history forever. Life in the 13 American colonies during the 1600s and 1700s was a world shaped by geography, economy, and social class, though united under British rule. The colonies were divided into 3 distinct regions: the rugged New England Colonies, the diverse Middle Colonies, and the agricultural Southern Colonies. Each region had its own story, its own struggles, and its own identity. Let's journey back in time to explore what daily life was really like in colonial America. First, let's visit the New England Colonies: Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and New Hampshire. Here, life was carved out of a harsh landscape. With rocky soil and long, cold winters, large-scale farming was nearly impossible. Instead, the colonists turned to the sea and the forest. The economy thrived on fishing for cod, hunting whales for oil, and building sturdy ships from the abundant timber. Towns like Boston became bustling ports, their harbors filled with vessels heading out to trade with Europe and the West Indies. Religion was the very heart of New England society, especially for the Puritans. They sought to build a city upon a hill, a model community guided by strict religious principles. Their lives revolved around hard work, discipline, and devotion to God. Community rules were enforced, and church attendance was mandatory. This focus on faith also led to a strong emphasis on education. New Englanders believed everyone should be able to read the Bible, so they established some of the first public schools and colleges in America, including Harvard in 1636. Life was demanding, but their shared faith and strong community bonds helped them endure the hardships. Next, we travel south to the Middle Colonies: New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. This region was a true melting pot, known for its incredible diversity. Unlike the more uniform society of New England, the Middle Colonies welcomed immigrants from all over Europe. Scots-Irish, Dutch, and Swedes all settled here, bringing with them a rich tapestry of languages, cultures, and religions. Quakers, Lutherans, Catholics, and Jews lived alongside one another, creating a more tolerant and cosmopolitan atmosphere. The land itself was a major draw, with fertile soil and a moderate climate. The Middle Colonies became the breadbasket of America. Farmers grew vast quantities of wheat, corn, and rye, which not only fed the colonies, but were also exported for a handsome profit. Bustling cities like Philadelphia and New York City emerged as major commercial centers. Philadelphia, founded by William Penn on the principles of peace and tolerance, quickly grew into the largest city in the colonies, a hub of trade, crafts, and intellectual life. The combination of agricultural wealth and cultural diversity made the Middle Colonies a dynamic and prosperous region. Now, let's journey further south to Virginia, Maryland, the Carolinas, and Georgia. The Southern Colonies were defined by their warm climate and long growing seasons, which made them ideal for cultivating cash crops. Huge plantations, sprawling across thousands of acres, dominated the landscape. Here, planters grew tobacco, rice, and indigo, valuable commodities that brought immense wealth to a small, elite class of landowners. Grand manor houses stood as symbols of their prosperity, built to imitate the lifestyles of English aristocrats. But this wealth was built on a brutal and tragic foundation: the institution of slavery. The plantation economy depended entirely on the forced labor of enslaved Africans, who were bought and sold like property. They endured unimaginable hardship, working from sunrise to sunset under the constant threat of violence. They were denied their freedom, their families were torn apart, and their culture was suppressed. This system of exploitation created deep social and economic divides, and represents one of the darkest and most painful chapters in American history, the consequences of which are still felt today. Colonial society was not a world of equals. It was a rigid hierarchy, and where you stood on this ladder determined nearly every aspect of your life. At the very top were the gentry, the wealthy plantation owners in the South, and the powerful merchants and lawyers in the North. They lived in luxury, controlled the politics, and set the social standards. In the middle was the largest group, the yeoman farmers, artisans, and shopkeepers. These were the hard-working backbone of the colonies. They owned their own land or ran their own businesses and while not wealthy, enjoyed a modest and independent life. They were the blacksmiths, the carpenters, the bakers, and the small-scale farmers who built their communities from the ground up. At the bottom of the social ladder were those with little to no freedom. This included indentured servants, people who agreed to work for a master for a set number of years, typically 4 to 7, in exchange for passage to America. Their lives were hard, but there was a light at the end of the tunnel. The promise of freedom. Below them, with no such hope, were the enslaved Africans. Stripped of all rights and considered property, they were trapped in a system of perpetual servitude with no escape. For most colonists, life was a cycle of hard work and simple pleasures. The day began before sunrise and ended long after sunset. Men's work was often outdoors, plowing fields, felling trees, hunting, or plying a trade in a workshop. A farmer's work was never done, dictated by the changing seasons. Women's lives were centered around the home, but their role was just as physically demanding. They were responsible for managing the household, which was a full-time enterprise. This included raising large families, cooking every meal over an open fire, churning butter, making soap and candles, spinning wool into yarn, and sewing all the family's clothes by hand. Their labor was essential for the family's survival. When work was done, entertainment was simple, and community people gathered for church services, which were also social events. They told stories, sang songs, and played music on fiddles or flutes. Community gatherings like barn raisings, quilting bees, and harvest festivals brought neighbors together to share work and celebrate. Life was challenging and often short, but these moments of cooperation and shared joy built resilient communities. Although the New England, Middle, and Southern colonies developed in very different ways, a common thread began to emerge. Over generations, colonists began to see themselves less as British subjects and more as Americans. They grew increasingly frustrated with British policies, especially taxes imposed without their consent and laws that restricted their trade. These shared grievances started to bridge the regional divides. The very differences that defined the colonies, the independent spirit of New England, the diverse tolerance of the Middle Colonies, and the fierce defense of property in the South would all play a role in the coming conflict. These distinct societies, forged over 150 years, were on a collision course with the British Empire. Their shared struggles against a distant power would unite them, setting the stage for a revolution that would give birth to a new nation. And this was life before America became the United States. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey into the past interesting, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories from history. See you next time.